Do you know I did all of that muted? So, hi, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Hold on, I'm going to unmute you. So, oops. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Timeshare Solutions or Surrender. And this is with Irene Parker. This is a new show, and please forgive me for the little mess up we have. But you know what? We're live, and this is what happens when you're live. And so, Irene, you are one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my career, and in what you do with timeshares, because you love them like we all do. But
Yes.
also know, just like everyone else, everything that's so greatly loved can also have problems. And you have taken it on and you to tackle these problems. And so, Irene, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you got there.
Well, it's been a journey, and my husband and I have owned timeshares since 1984, and we loved our timeshares. Our life revolved around our timeshares. Twice we went on vacation and exchanged our timeshare and bought a house and moved to where we had vacationed. But in 2012, we were Diamond Resorts members, and we owned at a resort that Diamond acquired. And the push was to give up your deed and convert to points, and we did. And I believe we had 2,500 points. And then we were given credit for what we had before. And then we went to Virginia and were told that Diamond Resorts was adding New York properties. Well, our daughter lives there, so that was very appealing, and we bought another 3,500 points. And when I attempted to book, it would have cost approximately $10,000 to use my timeshare points in equivalent maintenance fee dollars, compared to $3,000 booked online. And I checked, throughout several months, and I thought maybe I'm doing something wrong. And I called Diamond, and they said, "Oh, that's for people that have so many points, they don't know what to do with them all." And I said, "Well, that's not right." And I complained, nothing happened. So I filed a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General. And the response was all the times I had used my points prior to that purchase, which had nothing to do with buying that. And I didn't hold anything against the sales agent. He might have not known about the poor value. So then in 2015, we were moving from Kentucky to Florida. We used our Diamond points, and we went to a presentation that was horrific. And I won't go into it, but after the presentation, I went to our unit, and I turned on the television, and the late attorney Bob Massey was airing the show Property Man in Las Vegas, and he aired the mansion of the family that owns Westgate Timeshare. So you never think you're going to hear back, but I wrote to Mr. Massey, and a producer from Fox called and said the show wasn't about timeshares. It was about their house, which was 90,000 square feet with 30 bathrooms and an ice skating rink in Orlando. But we were flooded with timeshare complaints, and you're the only one we've invited to be interviewed on our show. And at that time, I had no Facebook account. I didn't know anything about Facebook, so I thought, well, maybe I should join that. And then I started emailing people, and I got an email back from someone that said they wanted to interview me. And I said, for what? And it was Jim Cramer's investment news service, The Street. And so I became a contributor for Jim Cramer, and people started calling. And then I met up with Charles Thomas in Spain that hosted a Inside Timeshare, and then after Inside Timeshare. And since 2016, we've written over 500 articles collaborating, and it's been quite a journey. And I really have been describing myself as a victim advocate since 1974, when my best friend was murdered, and I was supposed to be a witness, and her husband switched his plea to guilty, and the judge sentenced him to 7 years. So it's important to know that many people love their timeshare. We still like our diamond points. I'm still a diamond member. And there are a lot of honest sales agents, and I know a lot of current and former sales agents. My sales agent from 1984 is still a friend of mine. So we want to be positive. We want to focus forward. But what I did after I filed also with the Florida Attorney General and got no response, and then I filed with the New York Attorney General, and I was offered a refund. But the refund would have required that I sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, agreeing that I would never say anything negative. Well, after I retired as a stockbroker in 2001, I became a CASA volunteer and then a full-time paid supervisor on a grant, court-appointed special advocate for children in foster care, where I had to write court reports or edit my volunteer court reports for family court judges and interested parties. And that platform where you interview the biological parents, the foster parents, the child, and just try to figure out what's the best option for that child in state care. So basically, I took that model and I formulated a dispute resolution process, and getting to know other timeshare members. In 2019, we formed a nonprofit, 501c4, which means donations are not deductible. We're all volunteer, but all nonprofits have some expenses, and we want to grow a fund to do some lobbying because it's very expensive to lobby. So I think, since 2016, it's been over 3,000 timeshare members that have reached out, and it's growing, unfortunately.
That's a lot to take on since 2019. That's a lot of phone calls. I sit with you and I chat, and you're getting phone calls while we chat. We put them on, like literally put the phone calls on. Now you're talking about this didn't just start out first being an advocate for people with timeshares, the members and the owners, but also you were an advocate for family court. So it's not easy. It's a lot of work, no matter what you're doing. It's an uphill battle when you're working with people in general. So you had quite a history before you started all this. Well, what did Irene do before she became an advocate for people?
Well, I spent 6 years on welfare, and my first husband had a very tragic disease, And so my education was provided by vocational rehabilitation for my undergrad. And then I just clawed my way back up out of that gutter and achieved an MBA, a certified financial planning certificate. And my husband, Don, and I, he was my client, my first job out of college, selling blood tests to laboratory services to doctors. He's a former CDC lab director, and we launched a business, a pharmaceutical bioavailability laboratory. So when a generic wants to take on a trade name drug, you dose 36 healthy men, and we would analyze their samples. And if a drug failed, the first thing they would say is the lab didn't know what they were doing. So Don has always told me, fight with data, not words. So we have been tracking, again, there are many good sales agents, but we have been tracking the names we hear over and over again. And when you hear 5 to 20 complaints against the same sales agent from people that don't know each other, that may be a lower form of proof, but it is a form of proof. So after we sold our laboratory, that's when I became a stockbroker, moved to Hawaii for 9 years, and opened the first Edward Jones office on the Big Island of Hawaii. And having retired from Edward Jones in 2001, where to go from here? In Michigan, where it was kind of a strange thing for us to move. Well, it was because of our timeshare exchange. We moved from Honolulu to northern Michigan. And I heard about the Indian tribes that had been sexually abused by Notre Dame nuns. And I was just, and it was a 4-part article. So by the 4th part, I was hysterical. And I called the tribal leader and asked if I could meet with them. And that is probably the most profound experience I've had in my life, is going and meeting with Peacemaker Paul. And he was not abused because he was light-skinned. He was told to turn around and watch TV, according to his report. But that opened my eyes. That opened my eyes. And I at CASA of South Central Kentucky, I still feel the most vulnerable population are children aging out of foster care. It's just, the obstacles are just so high. So but the people that call me that have gone through this timeshare experience, you can say, well, oh, they just misunderstood, but it doesn't change the fact they may be financially devastated. And many of them are just as desperate as the biological parent that's had their child removed from their home. It's very difficult. People think it might be a couple of $1,000s. There was an 87-year-old veteran that was upsold to a $367,000 loan. Dominic, we posted an article about him, and he drained down his finances at $5,500 a month until he has nothing left financially.
I mean, and there are ways to avoid this, right? There are ways or things that could have been done to prevent some of these situations that have occurred. And being a financial, an expert in financial planning, you understand this, right? And so, for future reference, and we'll maybe do a show on that one day, is discuss how can you prevent some of these things from happening. And sometimes we become a victim of our own actions and choices because we don't realize we have other options. Just like me in my panic mode recently before I met you, right? Sometimes you just don't have anyone to really talk to help guide you. And that's what you're here for. That's what I've watched you do the past few weeks, is how you help people kind of realize they have other options, right? And not everything is just a win for you, but it can be a win-win for everyone involved. And that's what I've loved about working with you these last few weeks and hearing some of these stories. And sometimes not everything goes easy, right? It's like you say, we look for solutions first, right? But then
Yes.
I see you. I see the little anger come out in you, and you go, "No, that's not right. That is not." They poked her. They poked her, and you get it. Yeah, but you know what to do, and a lot of people don't. And it's the reactions that we do that becomes our ripple effect of what our outcomes are, is how we react. And the thing is you're so experienced at this, you know how to react, and you do it wisely. And that's where what you have formed for this organization. Let's talk about that just a little bit, Tarda.
Yes, I was going to jump in there and say I may be the gatekeeper for many of the people that reach out because, I've gone from not knowing how to use Facebook to my husband saying I'm worse than his daughter. And so,
You
but
do post a lot.
behind the scenes, we have not only our board members, and we've just recently added 2 new board members. We're up to 7, I think, of us, but we also have volunteers across the country that are, one volunteer, 82 years old, was denied a release even though his wife died 6 months ago and he has no loan. And he just took the bull by the horns, and that could definitely be the subject of another show. But there is no voice of the consumer in Washington, D.C. And the timeshare industry lobby may purport that they are the voice, but when you have a board of directors that consists of multimillionaires and a few billionaires, if you look at our board of directors, and we're updating our bios, I just did it yesterday, and I'm very impressed with our background. So, we've got a veteran on the board, and we've got, for the first time, a former timeshare sales agent is coming on our board. So we're really excited about what the future holds. And a big thank you to some of the resorts that have actually welcomed us and we have a good relationship with. Some are horrendous and they won't work with anyone. But what a product that you can't sell or give back often. I don't know of any other product that even without a loan, it may have no resale value or very
No
little.
equity in this whatsoever. The deed, you're given a deed, you pay a fortune for, on top of horrendous amount of maintenance fees and HOA fees, and you can't resell it. There's no resale value whatsoever in any of this. And I mean, I'm sure people have sold out, but the stories I've heard have been a negative, not a positive. And I'm sure there are a lot of positive stories out there too. And that's what we're about here today. Working with Irene is about not just finding solutions, but there are some positive outcomes. It's all about the information you receive, and that's what we're about, is providing the right information. Let's talk about TARTA, Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability. And you are advocates for timeshare owners and members. Okay. Let's talk about, you co-founded this. You've got it going. You are becoming the voice for people. Maybe not quite all the way to DC, but maybe we can get there and get some of the laws changed, which is another story. I know we talked about that today. But let's talk about, how did you come up with the name Tarda?
Just to be snarky. I heard about ARDA and this $7 that my maintenance fee is billed. And when I went to pay my bill, it said 1,257. It said nothing about the $7, but you have to go to account history to see the $7, and they raise $5 million a year to lobby. And in 2010, they were fined by the Federal Election Commission or Committee for not calling it voluntary. So after I was interviewed by before I was interviewed by Bob Massey on Property Man, I decided, I've had it. I'm going to sell my points. And I found someone else interviewed by Bob Massey, that was an expert in Marriott resales. Marriott does have some resale value on their more desirable properties. And I called them and asked if they would sell my diamond points. And they said no. And there's an organization of 50 timeshare resale brokers across the country. And to my knowledge, no one will accept a listing for diamond points. And Mr. Massey didn't even know that. And I learned that if I buy 20,000 points from you, to claim those points to join the club so I can book, I have to buy 10,000 directly from Diamond for about $40,000. So I thought, well, how many people know this before they buy? So what our lobbying effort is directed to is you have a very complex, complicated contract while you're on vacation, and buried in there are one or two sentences that say, I did not rely on oral representations to make my purchase. Translated, I did not rely or believe anything a sales agent told me. Well, if you knew that, why would you ever attend? And so what, and we did, it was a lobbyist that suggested we form the 501c4. He said, that's the most reasonable request I've ever taken to a lawmaker, where you would just, usually often you're given an appointment card or an email, and all you would have to do is put a sentence that said, I agree that I will not rely on any oral representations to make a purchase. Well, of course they don't want you to know that. And even Yahoo Finance wrote an article, unbelievable, why hedge funds like timeshare stocks. Abigail Fisher was the author, because they're evil. She likened timeshare stocks to being able to make a lot of money on Philip Morris while they slowly killed their customers. People sign complicated contracts they don't understand while they're on vacation. Check out this Reddit post where this person asked questions and were able to cancel, but most don't. Buy this stock. I mean, as a retired stockbroker, I can't even imagine justifying a stock on that basis. It's, doesn't make any sense.
But the thing is that they continue to make massive amount of sales every year. Like you said, all of a sudden you see this ARDA, which is something that you could definitely opt out of, but they don't really tell you about this, right? Boom, it just appears. And but it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy to opt out of. I mean, they don't give you a little check. Oh, I'm going to opt out of all of this stuff. I don't want to pay $7 to someone who's working against me rather than for me. But here you are. It's in your bill, right? It's in your monthly mortgage bill. Am I right?
Well, actually, one year it was reported as a delinquency. And, you call up and you're on hold, and they had to research it before they removed the $7. And then not this year, but the year prior, I said, I authorize this amount on my credit card bill. And I said, I do not want to pay the $7 fee. I think it might have been the 1,257. So I said, I authorize 1,250. And the next day, my husband said they charged 1,257. So I called them and they said, oh, we have to fill out a form to remove that $7. So, and a very good resource for timeshare members and owners and those thinking about buying is Timeshare Users Group, TUG. And the admin of that group, Brian Rogers, has done a YouTube on that, mentioning that $7 fee. So, and there's a need for ARDA, and I think that the industry needs a voice, but if we can just promote better communication, so it's not either or, and a timeshare sales agent messaged me just a few days ago, trying to convince me that I'm the scam and that, buyers are liars.
Oh
Uh,
my
you
God.
do you do realize that when people have buyer's remorse, they lie to get out of their contract.
But
So, you know,
well, most
it's
people have remorse from buying because they were lied to before they signed the contract. And their biggest remorse is in the contract. It says that anything said here is not held accountable in the contract. So, you waived your right to the representation that they made prior to the sale. So, I mean, the remorse is that, if you ask me. I mean, I don't know.
right, right,
Let's get
yeah.
that guy on the show and let's ask him.
I think we should.
I think so. But
Yeah.
you do a lot every day. I see you taking phone calls or hear you actually. And today I saw you. But you take a lot of phone calls every day. And so part of what I wanted to do isn't just about exposing what's going on, but providing people some similar information that I hear you repeat over and over and over to the people, and some things that maybe we can get into a template form and we can start sharing with the people so that they can also kind of fight their own battles too, like write to their state attorney general office, right to the consumer protection office, or even fraud. But everyone's situation that I've learned is different. Every
Oh,
story I've heard is different. And so your reaction has been quick, always the same, quick, on top of it, and very knowledgeable. But why not share that publicly so people can maybe call in during while we talk about this? But also, when you share this information, it's standard. And people go, oh, I need to do this, this, and this before I even call an attorney or before I call an exit company, or what are exit companies, or why am I even being bothered by exit companies? I mean, all of this information needs to come in and you can share it so that they don't feel, I mean, ignorant, right? Oh my God, what did I get myself into? That's remorse, right? You
yeah.
look at the contracts and they have no idea what they signed. I hear people go, and I have to always ask this stupid question when I'm talking with the people that call in is, did they get a deed or is it non-deeded? Or is it points? How do they get it? And you already know. You already know. But I'm trying to filter all of this. But everyone is different. And what we need to do is learn how to give the information to the people, but also give them an opportunity to call in and let them know you exist, and how we can help you fight this battle. Because again, it's not that this isn't wrong for everyone, right? Some people, they just need things tweaked a little bit. Like there's some contracts that they were told one thing and the contract said something else, but if it was corrected, then it'd be great. And then it's a win-win for everyone, not just the timeshare or the person who bought it and felt like they got scammed. And not every situation is a scam. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding. But from what I gather, I think that you're on vacation and you're sold this in a presentation. Everything that's represented in that presentation should be held accountable in that contract, because there's no way you can read that contract in 15-20 minutes that you sign it and then you're good to go. You won't even know that you waived your rights to the representation, and you waive your rights to lawsuits. In most of those contracts, it's arbitration only. You waive your right to a lawsuit, which to me should be illegal to begin with. You should never be forced to waive your right to a lawsuit until you know that you have a lawsuit. So I'm sorry I took over. This is Irene's story, and I want to get back to the Irene story. I get on my soapbox too, because, Irene, as you know, I've worked with victims as well in the family courts. And I think that's how we kind of build into this. You work with victims or people who feel like they're victims, but there's solutions. And that's
Yes.
what you are. You are the solutions. And
Well, and it's what's really important is to stop the victim blaming. That, well, just, it was your fault. You should just learn how to use it, enjoy it. Well, if you're drowning in debt, you're not going to enjoy it. And I would like to give a shout out to Doug Shadell from AARP, who wrote a remarkable book called Outsmarting the Scam Artist. And he explains why no one is smart enough to outsmart a scam artist. He calls it 90% ether and 10% logic. And in 1 week, three attorneys called me. It was about 2 years ago. All three attorneys had been deceived by the same timeshare company. One was an enforcement attorney for a state, one was a consumer protection attorney, and one was a JAG officer. So it's the Indians say, never judge your neighbor until you've walked a mile in their shoes. And if you look at mine, when I was told they're going to be adding New York property, well, I had never heard the word affiliate, which meant they just had some inventory. They didn't actually own that resort. And so there would have been no way reading the contract or the contract rescission period of Florida or Arizona or Virginia would have protected me.
And we're going to get that book in our bookstore so that people can check out that book. We'll have to get that book written up on the banner too. Real quick, before we wrap up this half hour of the session, tell us a little bit of one story that kind of poked the bear in you to get it more involved. I'm sure there's always that story. And can you share that story with us?
Yeah, that would be Leo Gomez. And I published and posted an article with not Epic, Opted News about Leo. And I received a phone call from him out of the blue. And this was, I think, in 2017 or 18. And he bought from the same resort I did before Diamond acquired our resorts. And he said he converted his deed into points, which is what, you've got to give up your deed and by points, you're going to be the last man standing. But I talked to him for about 15, 20 minutes and I said, Leo, I'm sorry, but I just don't hear anything deceptive. And I said, so, if you signed a contract, maybe check with an attorney, but a default might be the only thing you can do. And then he said, okay, well, I just was worried about my wife because I only have 30 days to live. And I was, excuse me? And it turned out he had 2 Purple Hearts and Agent Orange exposure, and he had pancreatic cancer, and he was dying. And I highly recommend the movie The Milagro Beanfield War. There's an elderly man with a big pig as a pet that would put a beer and a taco at the feet of the Virgin Mary when he went to bed at night. Leo sounded exactly like him. I woke up at 2:00 in the morning, which I do a lot after hearing about the timeshare nightmare during the day. And I said, wait, something's not right. And so I called Leo the next day and I said, why did you convert? And the reasons didn't exist. And the sales agent was one we had 8 complaints against, the same thing over and over again. And so because he was dying, and he forgot to mention his Bronze Star, I didn't know about that until I read his obituary. But because he was dying, I filed a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General on his behalf. So you can file on someone's behalf.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. And the response was a very detailed letter from Diamond's attorney describing everything wrong with Irene Parker in very great detail. And the very last sentence was, under the circumstances, we will cancel the loan. And I thought, whatever, but I felt that was, I just felt like, he has 30 days left to live, and he spent 6 times with me on the phone instead of with his family talking about his timeshare problem.
Because he didn't want it on his back or his family's.
His wife to do
Right.
that.
He didn't want them to worry about it. And it's something so simple that they could have taken care of that they should write in their contracts. But let's take a minute break.
One second though, real quickly, is I got a call 2 weeks later. His wife was hysterical. And she said Barclay was calling him trying to get the down payment that he charged to the credit card. and he only had a few hours left to live. So it wasn't a total happy ending, but I just wanted to finish the tail end of that.
Okay, you just I didn't hear that story before we got on here. Now you've made me really mad. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to take a break because I need to right now. And we'll be right back, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hello, everyone, and we are back with Timeshare Solution or Surrender. I am Kimberly Calhoun, one of the co founders of Pod TV, and here with me today is one of the co founders of TARDA and the host of Timeshare Solution or Surrender. And we are here all about getting you the right information to make things a little bit brighter in our lives because we're supposed to be on vacation with these timeshares. Hello, Irene.
Hi. Nice to
So
be back.
lots of things happen, and I mean, every time I talk to you, you're on the phone with someone. And we had a call today that came in that I want to bring the guest in. Her name is Taya. I'm thinking maybe she'll call in, but I think she's here already. Hello, Taya. Hi. So
Hi,
just
Taya.
a feel for things. Where are you from, Taya?
I'm originally from Michigan, but I am here in lovely Virginia right now.
And before we get started, I want to give you a big hug and thanks for serving our country and doing all the wonderful things that you do for us and sacrifice your life and time for us. And that's why I guess Irene got a little poked over this situation is because of what you do for us and she knows this story already before you even came to her. So I'm going to give this ball to Irene and let Irene take hold of the reins and talk about what this is. And you two are going to have a little chat and I'm going to step in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's a Facebook group that is not resort specific called Timeshare Cancellation Information, and they would not let me post for a year because I'm honest. So that there were several predators posting, some with impressive criminal records, and several people after a new admin took over and cleaned the prisoners from the jailhouse and started making it an honest place. Taya reached out to me, and what was really interesting was it was about the Service Members Credit Reporting Act. Do I have that right, Taya?
It's the Service Members Civil Relief Act.
Civil Relief Act.
Yep.
Okay. And what this says is that, and I introduced Taya to someone that same week had the same complaint. So if you are a service member or you're going into the service and you have a high interest rate loan before you enter service, the lender is required to reduce your rate to 6% while you're in service. So the other person going through what Ty is going through, she's been with the Air Force National Guard for 23 years. So she wasn't eligible and she really likes her timeshare. She'd like to get to the next level, but she couldn't afford it. And the sales agent said, well, go ahead because you're eligible for 6%. And she had remembered something about 6%, but wasn't until afterwards that she learned that you have to have the high interest rate before. Taya is very unusual, and she spent, I believe, 11 years in the Army, National Guard, and then I don't know what made you switch from the National Guard to the Army, and what do you do for the Army? Tell us that before we jump into timeshare.
Absolutely. So I joined the Michigan National Guard in 2012, and I served there for 11 years. When it came to a point in my life where I realized I wanted to progress my career a little bit further, I looked into the active duty Army because there's a specific scholarship program that I'm looking to get into where they'll pay for my law school. So I really like reading these laws. It's very interesting to me. So I've been active duty now since the beginning of May last year, and I have been working with Club Wyndham to help me secure this SCRA interest rate, but it's been a bit of a struggle lately.
I think that's an understatement. Didn't you say you've sent them 60 emails since September?
I looked just a few minutes ago. It's been 74 emails at this point.
What's the holdup? Because it seems like it would be fairly clear. And what's unusual about you is you were not eligible, but then because you became active duty, you had the Wyndham loan before you became active duty.
That's correct. So
Yes.
the biggest struggle is back in October, back in August, I reached out to Wyndham requesting this interest rate reduction. And they said, okay, well, send us your information, send us your orders, and we'll get it processed for you within 15 business days. And I did that. However, my mistake, I sent in the wrong paperwork. So of course they denied it. And I was like, shoot, my apologies. Let me send you the proper information. Let me send you the proper orders. And I sent them the email again in September with the correct information. And I waited the 15 business days. I gave them a call back. They said they still were processing it. So I said, okay, maybe this will take a little bit longer. So I waited a month. Still wasn't done. And I kept sending these emails because I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with the phone calls. I was getting a different representative every single time, and it was really hard for me to document all of what they were saying. So I decided to go the email route. That way I had proof of the conversations that we were having. Ever since September, I sent those 74 emails. I've gotten 4 responses back from Wyndham. The first one was a confirmation that they did receive my updated orders. The second one was that they were still processing my request. The third one was that they had escalated the request. And the fourth email they sent back was that they were still escalating the case, but nothing had come from it. I even asked if there was a case number so I could follow up on it, or a representative who was actually working on my case, and was told that there is no case number and that no one in specific is working on it. So at this point, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm not really sure what to do.
Well, our next step will be to send this link to Wyndham Media for comment. And I will say that Wyndham has been one of the better companies to allow our volunteers, some people are age impaired, to actually be on the phone. I actually had someone who had paid an exit company. If you pay an exit company, you're not eligible for the developer's free exit program. So I jumped in and helped him get the refund from the exit company, and had helped him. I got on the phone with him and Wyndham Certified Exit, and he was sending several emails just like you. And the other night the phone rang, and it was unknown caller, so I usually don't answer, but it was Wyndham. And they said that they were, received all this, and that the executive that he escalated up to was going to call. And then he called me, and she says, tell him he's going to call me. And the other one, this is priceless, where this man had no email. He didn't even text people. And you DocuSign now. Yep. And but he didn't have email. He didn't even have a computer. So someone created an email for him to DocuSign, and when I called Wyndham and told them about it, their response was, that's a felony, or that's fraudulent. And that's not usually the response you get. And that person was wonderful. So this is what I mean about better communication, but just what you have to go through. Sometimes just getting through the options, press 1 for this, 2, 3, 4, 5. If some of people with medical conditions, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is, and you also went to the trouble of retaining an attorney that had considered a class action, but then decided not to go forward with that. Can you
Mhm.
explain what that was like?
That was a very hard thing for me to take because I really felt like I had a strong case. And the issue with a lot of lawyers, especially those who are doing like individual cases, they don't want to get sued, reverse sued by Wyndham, because that does happen with a lot of timeshares where a lawyer will get countersued for helping somebody get out of their contract. So this class action I thought was going really well, and the lawyer caught what he believed was a loophole and felt like I don't qualify for it anymore. So at that point, that was the only class action lawyer I could get a hold of, the only one who responded to me. He said no, and so I've been trying to work with Wyndham as best as I can, but it's been very difficult to do that. And like you said, they are typically good to work with, but the issue is that they're just not progressing this case any further for me to get my reduction in interest. And the hard part is that this reduction in interest rate helps reduce my monthly payment, but because it hasn't been processed and military pay isn't necessarily the best in the world, I've been unable to make some of my payments, which is now hurting not just my credit, but it could hurt my security clearance within the military as well.
And then, and it doesn't need to be this way. But if they have this bill or law, it just should be an automatic shift. Somebody should just be able to send in their military credentials and paperwork, and it should be done. Irene, why is this so complicated?
Well, in the case of the other person that I introduced Taya to, she can't just get the 6% because she wasn't eligible in the first place.
Right.
And so the reason that, first of all, it's attorneys have told me that class actions concerning deceptive sales are very difficult to achieve because damages are not uniform. But there have been class actions filed in addition to the SCRA, the MLA, the Military Lending Act. And if arbitration was good for consumers, why does the military prohibit arbitration? So we'll be attending oral arguments on one of those lawsuits. I think 4 developers have been sued with this, and the argument is a timeshare stay a residential stay or a transient stay like a hotel? Because residential mortgages are exempt from the MLA. And I attended the oral arguments at the lower court, and one of the best lines I've heard from a judge is, when I leave my timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothpaste. And Kim, you were talking about deeded or non-deeded, and a class action law firm in New York sued Marriott for charging closing costs for a product that's not real estate. So Governor Scott legislated around that by changing the definition, I believe, of beneficial interest to not include timeshare. And the line in the response from the attorney I used as a headline, with Moses holding the 10 commandments, not since Moses has land been created out of nothing.
And that's true. I mean, and I asked that question, how are they getting away with so much? And my sister works in mortgage lending, and she went and took some classes in some of this, and every one of the laws, this blew my mind. Every one of the laws that they said the real estate agents had to adhere to and lenders had to adhere to, everything except for timeshare. She took this whole big class that she was required to take. And then I was telling her about this, and she says, well, that's funny you would say that. I just took this class, and every exception to the law was timeshare.
Well, and I was so impressed with Taya. It was the National Credit Union guidelines, Taya, you sent me?
So it's from the National Credit Union Association, actually. They put on their information regarding Military Lending Act and what is covered under Military Lending Act. And then at the bottom of the page in subscript, it specifically states that timeshares are not a mortgage. They do not qualify for exemption from MLA. They have to comply.
So this is concerns the moral readiness of our troops, our keeping our country safe. So if there's one reason why I have done this and engaged in this full time as a volunteer is our veterans and our active duty service members. I have heard my father was a cook for the nurses because he enlisted at age 36, World War II, and so I didn't grow up hearing with war stories, but I have heard some of the most incredible acts of bravery since I started doing this. So again, thank you for your advocacy, and we've already been recruiting her to be a volunteer for TARDA.
Absolutely.
I want to ask a question about this because I keep bringing this up. She just said that her credit union said this was not a mortgage. Yet they are allowed to foreclose on you and ruin your credit, ruin her opportunities in the military service as if it is a mortgage. And then you've got people who, and I've learned from through all of this that they probably pay with their credit card, or the company sets them up with a credit card and a lot of the payments on there. And that's supposed to be treated as an unsecured loan, but it's not. People are being taken to court over this. So explain, how is this considered a mortgage but not a mortgage? And how is her life ruined because it's considered a mortgage, but then her bank won't call it a mortgage?
I think we're getting a little help from beyond, because before I knew we were going to do this show today, I posted an article about this very thing. It was part 2. Part 1 was timeshare defaults. Part 2 is credit repair and credit reporting. And one attorney has a forensic accountant, and he said that, and it's still fresh in my memory, but it can't be a mortgage because it's a security agreement so a security agreement and a mortgage are two different things. But it's a mortgage when it suits them, and it's not a mortgage when it doesn't suit them. So you have this difference of opinion with it, and when they were arguing about the oral arguments I attended in the first week of October, Holiday Inn Club Vacation, Westgate, Diamond have been sued, accused of violating the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And that is, I was very grateful to see that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent an attorney out to argue on behalf of consumers. The Chamber of Commerce sent an attorney out to argue on behalf of the industry. But it's so complicated. And one of the appellate judges said, 3 judges in appeal court said, even the courts can't make up their mind. 3 of the courts ruled one way, 3 of the courts ruled another way. And this was about whether the timeshare developer needs to investigate disputes. And that's what the article we posted today is about. It's very complicated. And I think laws, it take a long time to change a law. So your grandmother's timeshare, we owned a wonderful timeshare, and my daughter is the happy owner of Maui Hill, where you could see, feel, and touch it. It was Unit 57. I had to check in August 13th every year or exchange it. You could argue that was real estate. But non-deeded timeshare points, you don't say, I own at my country club. I own at my gym. You don't own the brick and mortar of your country club or your gym. You are a member. So why is that real estate? It really isn't. It really isn't.
So let's talk about a solution for Taya. Let's lay out 1 or 2 solutions. What's the call to action that we're going to do or can do for this situation?
You can jump in, Taya, but you get disgusted and I want out of this whole deal. And I'm like, wait a minute, you signed a valid contract. You like Wyndham. You really liked Wyndham, and you really, it was your goal to get to the next silver level, but you couldn't afford it. And the sales agent said, oh, you should do it right now because you're in the military, you can get 6%. So it's like, what? And then, no, you agreed to, if you could get the 6%, you could be okay. So if Wyndham is willing to honor that, then she signed a contract. I told her a deal's a deal. So if that's what you agreed to, I wouldn't go. I can't be a lawyer, which is why she's talked to lawyers. But just try to work with them to see if you can get what they promised. But what the next step is to send the link to this to their media department and ask them for their response. And then we would have her file a complaint with the you bought in Las Vegas, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So and this is why every state is different. So people don't know how to begin. You don't file with the Attorney General. If you do in Nevada, they will just forward you to the Nevada Real Estate Division, NRED, and you have to file against that sales agent, which means you've got to track down his ID number. And then you will file with the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But according to a Westgate owner, you cannot file a complaint for a timeshare with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because they are not a financial institution, but you can tell your story. And you don't think these big agencies are paying any attention, but in 2020, timeshare was number 9 on the FTC's top 10 scam list at 18 million. And timeshare resales, fake buyers, were number 10, and I believe 13 million. So I think that, by filing a lot of people filing complaints, you will get their attention. So it's just that would be our next step to, and then contacts with the military.
I want to send a word to Wyndham. Wyndham, hear me out. This woman sacrifices her life and her time for our country. All of these people who signed on with you with the thought, and they were sold and told and sold that they would get the 6%. How hard is it for you to say, okay, anyone with this kind of credentials, they just get it? Don't drag your feet for her and make her send 74 to 100 emails when she needs to be serving us and then coming back and taking vacation with you and then selling you up and going, wow, I had the best vacation at Wyndham and I got all of these points and I love this. Why not make this a win-win, Wyndham, and make me want to buy into you? Because right now, I don't even want to use Wyndham anymore the way you're dragging her around, or anyone. I'm sure you're just not the only one. So that's my word to Wyndham. We're going to take this and send it to them, but we're also going to make this go as viral as we can. Let's talk about the military act, the Lending Act, April 18th. Let's talk about this a little bit. There is an appeal hearing that you are going to be part of, and I'm coming too. You know what? Let's talk about this, Irene. Share a little bit.
Well, and before I jump into that, I'm very good at being devil's advocate. So I would respond to Taya. Here are your initials where you agreed you didn't rely on anything a sales agent said. You signed a contract. But anyway, I'm not a part of that appeals court, but I will be attending. Hopefully, Kimberly, as you can as well. But there were oral arguments. The first one I'm aware of being sued was Blue Green. And the oral arguments for the Military Lending Act, Lewis versus Blue Green, was in the first week of October. I attended that as well. That, and maybe it's my lay mind where court isn't always logic. The law is not always logical. Where they said that the argument, they did not address whether a timeshare mortgage is a mortgage, a home loan or not a home loan. The arguments then were whether the service member incurred actual damage. Now, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent an attorney to argue on their behalf as well. And how can you say they weren't damaged if they paid a down payment and they defaulted on the loan? I'd have to check back on it. But at the very least, if you could lose your security clearance over a timeshare loan, how can you say there's no damage? So then, there were others that have been, but they kind of, get on hold to wait to see how the appeals court will judge one way before going to the other. So I feel it's the Super Bowl of court matters, this ruling that will come out of that. And I just hope that it's not just the three of us that are concerned about how much harm is being done to our service members.
It's just astounding to me that they just ignore it, basically. But you know what? We're here to make the changes. We're here for solutions. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Taya. I'm looking forward to working with both of you ladies as we move forward in the back scenes on this. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys next week, Monday, where we're going to bring you more solutions. Or guess what? Surrender. Thank you, everyone, for... I love it, Irene. I love you.
Military ending. You're good to go.